If you like audiobooks or audio shows, check out a free trial of Audible. Just click the link in the description.
Welcome to Mindshock True Crime. This is the Jonbenet Ramsey series. Episode 19. This is episode 19, Mysterious Vehicles. Now, this is one of the least talked about aspects of the case. A mysterious vehicle that was supposedly of quite some interest early on in the investigation, and then we don't hear about it anymore. I am, of course, your host, Bruce McGuire, and we'll be examining this topic in typical Mindshock fashion, with logic and reason at the forefront, attempting not to fall for any logical fallacies, unlike all these other true crime podcasts out there, and of course, anything in the mainstream on the idiot box. We will be doing a deep dive into this vehicle and everything, all of the information known about it, and what it could all mean if it's related. As always, if you enjoyed the podcast, find it interesting and informative, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. You could also become a YouTube member right here on YouTube. Help support the channel that way. Help keep up awareness in unsolved cases, cold cases, missing persons cases, and wrongful convictions. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Hit that bell for notifications. Like and share Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Patreon. Patrons do get priority for case topic, logical analysis, co-podcast, or requests. You could also be a guest on the podcast depending on your tier. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind, leave them in the comment section. Okay, so I don't know if we've ever even mentioned this black jaguar. So apparently there was a black jaguar on the 25th supposedly circling the White's house during their Christmas party. Now, this actually intersects with a theory that Jonbenet Ramsey was actually killed at the Fleet White home. Now, whether some people believe this was just some kind of an accident, other people believe it was some kind of satanic Illuminati abuse ritual. There's all sorts of theories out there, but regardless, it is kind of curious how supposedly there was quite some interest with the black jaguar, and I've actually found information on the jaguar that supposedly it was around not just that night, but a previous night as well, possibly the night of the other 911 call on the 23rd. And this, of course, was attributed to Fleet White, but we went over all the funny business surrounding that call. And, yeah, that's obviously very weird. And the black jaguar was actually not the only suspicious vehicle, but we'll get to that in a moment. Let's go to the Jonbenet Reddit subreddit. This was posted by Justice for JR 4 years ago. Suspicious jaguar vehicle. While the Ramseys were having Christmas dinner at the White's home, a suspicious jaguar vehicle was seen driving back and forth by the residents on numerous occasions. I don't know who reported it. Does anyone have any more info about the report? A Jaguar is a luxury car. Not many people own these vehicles. If the Jaguar was indeed involved in the crime, it could narrow down the background of the intruder or intruders. Someone from a wealthy background, perhaps. So Gen C posted the response here. There's also a Jaguar mentioned as being parked in front of the house in the Boulder police report. I don't know about the reports of one driving by the Whites on Christmas night. So again, I don't know how verified any of this is. Of course, on Mindshock, we go over every single theory and possibility in exhaustive fashion. So there might have been up to 3 separate reports. Ramsey home on the 23rd, the night of the suspicious 911 call. The night of the 25th at the Fleets and also at the Ramsey home. So potentially there could have been 3 reports of a black jaguar. So what's curious about black jaguars, I've also seen reports that it could have been dark gray or black. So I guess it's possible there could have been a mistake, and these could be 2 or 3 different vehicles even. And it doesn't state the exact nature, the exact model here. But these are not the most popular vehicles. I mean, you can go out and not see a single Jaguar in the U.S. Now, I don't know about Boulder. People living in Boulder, I mean, are there more Jags? I mean, Jags, I think, were more popular probably in the 90s, but I don't know. They really weren't that popular. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's not like other vehicles like Mercedes, BMW. I mean, there's a lot of these other type of luxury vehicles that are way more popular than Jaguars. So, yeah, I mean, it's definitely a curiosity. Heather posted this response: Christmas Day isn't really an odd time to see an unknown vehicle driving around a neighborhood looking for the home of a friend or relative who's hosting Christmas dinner. See, it depends what time, though, because if this was earlier in the evening, correct. But if this is closer to midnight when everybody's already home, like, why would it be circling? I mean, if someone's lost, I mean, if they're already going home, I mean, I don't know. She also posted, my aunt and uncle owned a brand new Jag in the mid 90s. They lived comfortably, but they weren't millionaires. It would be helpful to know the exact model because, like most vehicle manufacturers, even among the luxury lines, I mean, there could be a substantial difference in price. So Lou Smith was the one who said the vehicle was suspicious. According to the 98 Boulder Police Department interview, John Ramsey stated, so Lou Smith asked him, so apparently there was one or more witnesses at the White's house regarding this black Jaguar circling their house. Other sources state that John Ramsey himself was the witness. Lou Smith asked him about the Jaguar in the 98 interview. He asked, do you know anyone that owns a black Jaguar? John Ramsey asked late model like XJ6 or a later model. Lou Smith responded, right. John Ramsey responded, no. I think they're talking about the fleets here. They had a white one. It was kind of an unusual color. Gold, it wasn't green, you know. But do they have a Jaguar convertible? Yeah, they do. And then also, Patsy Ramsey has a white Jaguar. I mean, there's a lot of Jaguars here. Because earlier in their interview, again, this is the 1998 Boulder PD interview with John Ramsey. Anybody can look this up. His interview with Lou Smith. So he states later in the evening, so when did you go up to the Whites? At what time it was that you left your house? 4:30 to 5. It was an early dinner. Then Lou Smith asked, later on in the evening, you dropped off some presents at different places. Now, Smith asked him about who loaded them into the car. John Ramsey says he doesn't remember loading anything. Lou Smith asked, which car did you take? John Ramsey responded, we took Patsy's white Jaguar. So hold on a second. Let me try to get this straight here. You can't make this stuff up. So they took Patsy's white Jaguar to the Whites, who also own some kind of Jaguar, white or gold, like a non-regular white or gold Jaguar convertible, and witnesses at the White's home said that there was a suspicious black Jaguar circling the house. So there's 3 Jaguars in close vicinity of each other at the same time. I mean, how popular of a vehicle were I don't remember Jaguars being that popular. Okay, so I found some production numbers. CarolinaJaguarClub.com published some production numbers, various years. The Jaguar XJS, only 115,000 produced during a 21-year production life. I mean, obviously there's different models here. That's the XJS. But even modern sales, like XJ sales, U.S. annual sales 2016, 3,834. In 2019, 1,072. Is that accurate? That's goodcarbadcar.net. Might not be accurate, I don't know. But production numbers do not look like they're a lot. So anywhere between thousands and hundreds of thousands. I mean, this isn't for the regular XJ. I mean, yeah, we're looking at tens of thousands per year. For example, the XJ Series 1, between 1968 and 73, there were only 82,000 produced. Over 5 years. 91,000 produced between 73 and 79. XJ Coupe, between 75 and 78, only 10,000 produced. The XJ Series 3 sedan, between 79 and 92, only 132,952 produced. Now that's how many produced. So how many were exported to the States? I mean, I don't know if it makes a distinction here. So 79 to 92, the Series 3 XJ12, only 10,500. Oh, wow. On productioncars.com, I mean, they're saying supposedly total Jaguar USA sales figures. In 96, only 17,878. In 95, 18,085. In 94, 15,000. So this is not a lot of vehicles. So to have 3 Jaguars, I mean, right around the same house? I mean, does anybody find that weird? That's kind of weird. Wow. So the Ramseys are driving around in a Jag. The Whites have a Jag. And there's also another mysterious Jag circling the house with 2 other Jags there at that time. With only, somewhere around 10 to 15,000 even being exported to the U.S. year after year. The whole U.S. So this is Boulder, not the most populated city. And this is Colorado, not the most populated state. So when Lou Smith asks him, do you know anyone else that owns the Jaguar? John Ramsey says, hold on, yes, I do. There's a guy that had an apartment in Barbara Fernie's mother's complex that we looked at renting. This was after this happened for a place to live. And he had a black Jaguar, I believe. So this random guy at an apartment so Barbara Fernie's mother. So the Fernies are one of the least talked about so-called friends of the Ramseys. We went over them on previous episodes. So Barbara Fernie's mother, how well off is she? She's in a random apartment complex where some guy has a black Jag? I mean, I don't know. So that's 4 black Jags? Well, it doesn't say that Fernie's in Boulder, but I would like to know how many Jags were in Boulder versus every other city. Obviously, I don't think there's stats on that, but because across the whole U.S., I mean, there's really not that many sales. Across the entire U.S., there's only 18,085 sales of Jaguars. These are all models, so not just convertibles. These are total Jaguar USA sales figures according to productioncars.com. 18,085 and 95. So I don't know if these are 95 model or 95 sales. Because the 96 model, for example, that would have came out in 95. But either way, it's the same thing. Anywhere between 15 and 18,000 per year. And they went down a lot. So, for example, in 92, there were only 8,681 Jags sold. And then, so 96, 17,878, 97, 19,503. It wasn't until 98 where it was 22,503, 99, 35,000, 2000, 43,000, 2001, 44,000, 2002, 61,000. So, but back in 92, it goes 8,000, 93, 12,000, 94, 15,000, 95, 18,000, 96, 17,878. So not a lot of Jags being sold. And we have 4 right here that John Ramsey himself, or at least 3, they have a Jag, the Whites have a Jag, and this random guy. Would you even remember that? Like, this is kind of weird. If you're John Ramsey, not your friend's mother is at a random apartment complex, and there's a guy there that has a Jag. So this was after this happened. I'm assuming this happened. He's talking about Jonbenet's death. They were looking for a place to live. He had a black Jaguar, I believe. Lou Smith said there was one scene in the neighborhood, the Whites on that morning or that evening. What does that mean? How does Lou Smith not know whether it was the morning or the evening? John Ramsey says that's the only black Jaguar I have seen in Boulder. This guy's got to be a short guy. He was in real estate. He was inaudible, but just peculiar. So it does multiple speakers, something inaudible, and Ramsey responds, the Fernies might, I guess they're asking if he knows his name. No, but the Fernies might, because I think they put, I can't think of the name of the apartment complex, but it's where Barbara's mother had an apartment in Boulder. He had to leave. I think he had left it there where he had a sublease, perhaps. Then Lou Smith states, how about anybody that owns an Astro type van? Do you have any friends that own that or people from Access? There was an Astro type van seen in the area in the report. What color? There was no color. John Ramsey says Access had a van that was a white Chrysler minivan. He also states that Fleet had a gray Caravan. So the Fleets have a white or gold Jag convertible and also some kind of Caravan minivan. That's interesting. Some Mark Candy posted, you'd think it'd be easy to find the owner of such a car, even if they came from as far away as Aspen. I wish the Whites had been questioned about friends or relatives of theirs who owned black Jags. Samar Candy also posted, when you think of the leads that BPD did follow, like sending Thomas and Gosage on a 5-week hunt through 4 states, locating friends of John's dead daughter to see if she had confided with them anything about John having molested her, and this is even after his living daughter and son and ex-wife had said John had never behaved this way, and allowing Thomas and Gosage to set up microphones in a Georgia graveyard in the hopes of capturing a confession Patsy might make when visiting Jonbenet's grave. You would think that checking on car ownership would be a far more cost-effective way of finding the true killer of Jonbenet. Of course, this all assumes that the police force wouldn't have had the mindset that the Ramseys were guilty. Wow, that is mind-shocking. I don't remember reading about that anywhere. That's crazy. So they mic'd up Jonbenet's grave. That's really weird. Has that been done in any other case? If that's true, that's really weird. And they also... So apparently they went to a bunch of different states tracking down Elizabeth Ramsey, who died with her boyfriend Matthew Darrington January 8th, 92 in a car accident. Some people think the accident is suspicious, but who knows? Yeah, I mean, this is definitely a weird case. That's kind of weird. Here's an interesting post from Stupid Eyes Me. Who saw the suspicious Jaguar and who decided the Jaguar was suspicious? By one account mentioned above it was somebody at the Fleet's house, which is utterly ambiguous because the Ramseys were at the Fleet house too. A Candy Rose gives the source of the suspicious Jaguar as John Ramsey himself. I find it utterly ludicrous to imagine that a small foreign faction of terrorist kidnappers was carpooling around Boulder in a Jaguar. If they could afford to drive a Jaguar, why did they ask only $118,000 for a ransom? Well, maybe it was a rental Jaguar. You'd need a big chunk of that cash just to keep the Jaguar running. Ask somebody who owns one. Good point there. But again, maybe it was a rental. Nor do I believe desperately depraved pedophile intruders looking for a way to secretly enter the Ramsey home would scout the neighborhood in a Jaguar. A Jaguar in the U.S. would have to rank as one of the stupidest getaway vehicles of all time. Jaguars stand out like sore thumbs even in wealthy neighborhoods because they're British luxury automobiles. Jaguars have very distinctive body styles and hood ornaments, making them utterly unsuitable to any clandestine activity in the U.S. I think the suspicious Jaguar story is just another Ramsey red herring. Well, maybe it's a complete red herring, but on the other hand, if it's a rental or this is some kind of Illuminati in the club people, they're not concerned about getting caught because they're not going to be prosecuted. I mean, just look at all of the craziness and the Franklin scandal and even the Epstein case nowadays. I mean, this is just crazy. So, I mean, I wouldn't jump to any conclusions there fallaciously. Other people asking why would someone drive, even if they are scoping the place out, why would they drive by several times conspicuously instead of just parking down the street somewhere? That's a good point. Some searching girl responded to get a better, closer look at the star, ? Stupid Eyes Me responded, that's a good possibility. When I was a kid, we loved to drive around to look at Christmas lights. Christmas time is also when people have friends, relatives, and out-of-town guests over, and maybe they aren't familiar with the local streets and addresses. It was practically a national sport to drive around lost in the olden days before satellite navigation. And everybody knew someone who refused to stop and ask for directions, no matter how hopelessly lost they were. So, yeah, did they have some kind of really cool decorations? Because that would definitely explain it, unless it was the same Jaguar at the Fleets and the Ramsey home, and the same one 3 nights prior during the call, the other 911 call. I mean, obviously, I don't know how anybody would corroborate that was all the same Jaguar, but since Jaguars are relatively rare vehicles in those years, or any years, I mean, it's just, yeah, it's kind of hard to completely write it off just because it's a Jaguar, just mathematically. Searchin' Girl posted, I remember reading in the camera when he died that the Vermeer boy's father was known for his elaborate house, Christmas lights, and display. The boys lived in the house to the south of the Ramseys with their mother, and their father lived only about a block away. So that alone might have attracted looky-loos. CU was on break, meaning there wasn't much traffic, so the distinctive car would have stood out, especially to John Ramsey, who owns one. That's another good point, too, because if the Whites and the Ramseys own Jaguars, they would recognize another Jaguar. Or maybe it could have been someone looking for a drug dealer. There are quite a few of them on the hill, and Christmas is a special occasion. That's another good point. I mean, who are the Whites' neighbors? But, I mean, so there was notable Christmas decorations near the Ramsey home a block away, but not necessarily near the Whites home, because this is about the Whites home, huh? Oh, regarding the Boulder Star, Searchin' Girl posted, when my first thought of this when I read this is that the location of Cleveland Ave is directly underneath the Boulder Star, and it might have caused more people driving in the neighborhood to get a better look. However, there probably weren't many registered Jaguar owners in the state at the time. And perhaps cross-referenced in the license plate database to any phrase or wording in the ransom note might lead to a suspect. Seems too late now. Yeah, I mean, if there's like a Boulder Star landmark, Christmas decoration, whatever, in the general area, then I guess there would be a lot of people driving around. That could be explained away unless they can somehow prove it was the same Jag at the Ramsey home the morning of and 3 nights prior. May asked if this was talking about the dark blue Astro van, where there were multiple police reports reference this Astro van. Justice for JR responded, no, this is different to the blue Astro, a suspicious Jaguar driving back and forth. I don't know the color who reported it. Lou Smith considered this Jaguar to be suspicious, and I agree with him. I think someone was watching the White House to make sure that the Ramseys had not left. When the Ramseys left, they may have called the person who was in the home. Remember what the note said about the family being under surveillance? This is curious, actually. I didn't even think of this. I was thinking maybe they followed the Ramseys home. But if they had people in the Ramsey home, like setting up or whatever, while they were at the White home, did they have someone keeping tabs on the Ramseys to know when they were getting home? Huh. That's curious. And if anybody stopped, let's say they stopped the Black Jag and they were like, oh yeah, we're just looking for the Boulder Star, that's kind of a good excuse. But why would they need to drive back and forth? Did they think it'd be too suspicious if they parked like down the street? I don't know. Because if the Ramseys have a white Jag, that should be pretty easy to spot even from a decent distance. Even at night, I mean, it's white. And with all the Christmas lights out and about. May also posted that it wasn't exactly a wealthy neighborhood. There are large homes in the area, but there are also complete dumps sprinkled throughout. That's curious. Huh. That's curious because if it was a mixed neighborhood of rich and not rich people, like literal dumps next to giant houses, that would make, yeah, I mean, that's a little weird. That's definitely weird. And like the supposed drug party going on that JT Colfax supposedly found out about in jail. If you haven't checked out the Colfax episode on the Mindshock series, check that out. May posted, one of the things that bothered me so much about the media coverage, I too had the impression until I drove down their street in 97. I was expecting to see sprawling mansions in an ultra-posh neighborhood, just like I had heard about time and time again. What I saw was vastly different. On their block in the 90s, there was a mix of large homes, dilapidated expletive holes, and fraternity houses. Huh. Jameson posted here. I don't know if this is the Jameson. Especially if you put the Ramsey house in the center and have a circle around it for perhaps a quarter-mile radius. There were some very nice houses, most a bit smaller but very nice, and then there were the others. After my 22-year involvement, my husband recently traveled with me to Boulder for the first time. He has clearly seen photos of the house, seen all the documentaries. He was not prepared for the reality. The houses are pretty close together, not a rural setting at all, lots of cover for anyone wanting to hide, study, or stalk. Now from a June 98 interview, all right, let's look at, this is Jonbenet Ramsey murder.discussion.community forum. Unidentified, possibly suspicious vehicles seen around the Ramsey house and also around the White's house around the time of the murder. So Samar Candy posted this September 20th, 2020, blue Astro van, observed parked directly across the street from the Ramsey house by a neighbor December 24th. This is from the Lou Smith deposition, January 2002. On December 24th, 96, in the morning hours, a neighbor who was also a personal friend of Boulder detective Linda Arndt, quote, observed a dark blue Astro van parked across the street from the Ramsey home. This is BPD report 1-98. Wait, this neighbor just so happened to be a personal friend of first on-scene detective Linda Arndt? Oh, man. How high is this coincidence stack? This is weird. I mean, how often is one of the neighbors where a death of a child occurred the close, some kind of personal friend of the detective? This is so weird. I'm assuming this Linda thought this was legitimate since this was her friend that she personally knew. So that's the 24th, 96. So December 25th, 10 a.m., the same neighbor, wow. So the next morning, the same neighbor, quote, observed a dark blue Astro van traveling northbound on 15th Street in the 700 block and stopped in front of the Ramsey home. Also from BPD report 1-98. December 26th, 96. So for the third day in a row, the same neighbor, quote, may have seen a dark blue Astro van parked in the same general location near the front of the Ramsey home from that same report 1-98. That's actually kind of weird because, so she's not sure if it was the same one. So for 3 mornings in a row, it doesn't say what time on the 96th though, but it was parked all in the same location. Now, keep in mind what we just learned about the neighborhood. Apparently, it's not this rich, posh neighborhood. It's a mix of somewhat, there's rundown homes, and there's also really posh homes. This is all very weird. So, Jean Fortier reported a dark blue Astro van parked across from 755 15th Street on both Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. As far as is known, no one knows whose vehicle it was or who they may have been visiting or watching. Lou Smith questioned John about the blue Astro van in his June 98 interview, asking John if he knew any friends of theirs who owned one. But John didn't know of anyone. Incidentally, there was another blue van seen parked across the street from the Ramsey house the morning of December 26th, but that was investigated by Detective Steve Ainsworth and was found to have belonged to a friend of the Ramseys. So no, it said it was an Astro van because Fleet apparently has a Caravan, not an Astro van. So if they're that adamant that this was an Astro van, then this is not White's. So was it another family friend? Okay, more specifics here. The Black Jaguar. On the 25th, there was a Christmas party at the White's house just before the murder, just before the Ramseys came home. And there was a suspicious Jaguar vehicle reported in the police reports driving back and forth by the White's residence on numerous occasions. So this is from the Lou Smith deposition, January 2002. On Christmas Day 96, someone inside a Ramsey family friend's home noticed that a Jaguar convertible drove by that home at least 5 times. That's a lot of times. If they're just going to see the star and they got lost, at least 5. So 5 or more. So 5, 6, 7, 8 times. That's crazy. The Ramseys joined close friends for dinner inside that home on Christmas Day night. This is from Boulder Police Report 26-125. Wow. At least 5 times? So, someone inside the Ramsey friend. So, this could have theoretically been John Ramsey who gave this report. Other sources say that there was more than one witness to the Jaguar. So, we don't really know. And then I can't track down. I don't know if it was just a rumor that a black Jaguar was also seen outside the Ramsey home on the 23rd during their Christmas party during the other 911 call. Okay, also another suspicious vehicle we have is the pickup truck. From John Ramsey's 98 interview, there was a truck that was parked in the alley across the road that I had never noticed before, and I was watching the truck to see if possibly somebody who was ... This is John Ramsey said that. Lou Smith said, let's talk about the truck that you say you see. Which window were you at when you saw it? Ramsey says, I think I was in Burke's room because the window is here. Lou Smith asked, where was the truck parked? John Ramsey responded, well, it was kind of behind the barn hills. There's an alley behind the barn hills and then almost like a house behind the barn hills. And I watched it for a while and there wasn't any activity. I specifically do remember the truck. Did Glenn Meyer have a vehicle? And if so, what kind of vehicle did he have? Because he was the boarder at the Ramseys, at the Barn Hills. Also came over to the Ramseys during their Christmas party. There's also a white hatchback from the June 98 interview. I also saw a little white car that seemed to drive by inaudible, and I think it was early morning the day after Christmas. There wasn't much going on. I remember seeing the white Ford Fiesta or something like that. It was a small white Lou Smith asked, and where was that at? It drove by. You get the picture of your house? Ramsey says, yeah, it drove on Cascade, drove down the street. Updated interview with Keenan and Schuler. Ramsey stated, I thought I saw him drive by twice on Cascade on the 26th, and there was hardly any traffic. What time? Early 7-ish, probably. It was early in the process. So you noticed a small white car? Hatchback type. It could have been, but it's possible. I don't remember it specifically, but it was a small white car. Several times, I want to say twice. Twice in one direction or down and back. Possibly twice in the same direction. I mean, it was a little suspicious to me at the time, but it wasn't enough to really lock in on it. So Samar Candy also posted this. Biz's information she dug up relating to the blue van, B-I-Z. I don't know this user, but this was, I guess, copy-pasted from somewhere May 14th, 2012. Missouri in January 97. What is strange is that this blue van is mentioned as being seen before and around the murder time near the Ramsey house. It would have been a rickety thing. She only paid $200 for it, but it ran. And perhaps that's why it stuck out so much. I think it is very odd that someone drove that van to her in Missouri. Did someone want it out of Boulder because it was used in the crime? John Kennedy has called me 3 times, but I was too busy with family to call him back. And if you haven't checked out the John Kennedy podcast and his connection to quite a bit of strangeness with Helgoth and others, check that out. We went over that in previous episodes. It is kind of weird. Would you drive some kind of rickety $200 van to some kind of high risk to do a high risk kidnapping or something? That's kind of weird. Like, wouldn't you be afraid it would stall out on you? I guess if you're a totally non-intelligent, desperate criminal, who knows? But May 15th, 2012, the blue van was very interesting to Lou Smith. It was there for 2 days in a row, or 2 different days close to the murder. Possibly 3, according to what we just read. Unless there was a mistake there. For those, and the person reporting the van is supposedly a personal friend of Linda Arndt, the first detective on scene. Anybody find that weird? I mean, this is all really weird. For those of you just entering the conversation, I just spoke to Karen Gygax. And she told me she left an old $200 rusty Dodge van at Valmont Auto with the keys in it when she left with Gygax for Indiana. Again, if you haven't checked out the Kennedy Gygax Helgoth podcast on Mindshock, check it out. These are very strange individuals, to say the least. They never made it to Indiana because he tried to kill her, and she ran out of the rental truck with the clothes on her back, and she stayed in Paris, Missouri ever since. You can't make this stuff up. This is crazy. However, in January 90, so some guy involved with blowing the whistle in the Jonbenet Ramsey case with his own associates supposedly tries to kill his wife. Is Karen his wife? It doesn't say here. He tries to kill her while they're taking this. Well, it says this is a $200 rusty Dodge van. Is this the Caravan? But the neighbor said Astro. So does the neighbor not know her vans? But you would think someone could show her a photo of the difference between a Dodge Caravan and an Astro van. Unless, I don't know, how old is she? Does she can't see clearly? Maybe it was the same van, maybe it wasn't. And is it coincidentally the same model that Fleet White has? You would think Fleet White would have a model that wasn't breaking down, though. $200 rusty, I mean, who knows? However, in January 97, someone drove that van out to her in Paris, Missouri. I wonder who drove it out and why didn't they just scrap a $200 van for parts? Did someone want it out of Boulder? Is this why the perp did these things in the home and Jonbenet Ramsey was not taken as planned because the van broke down? ? Gygax, Helgoth, and Kennedy are all expert mechanics. So wait a second. If they're all expert mechanics, does it just look rickety, but they somehow... The other thing that's kind of weird is, this is a weird thing. A lot of people say this. Mechanics, even not completely dead broke mechanics, like some non-quite broke mechanics, all drive like broken down cars that always break down. Isn't that kind of weird? I've heard this from many people, by the way. I had a mechanic once, a friend of mine. He had a rickety, it looked like a complete piece of crap, but as far as I know, it always ran perfectly. So I don't know. I mean, did the van not break down and it just looked like rusty crap, but they actually replaced all the parts very well so that they knew it would be reliable? Karen is the one who noticed info about the blue van from the paperwork I sent her about the case. She doesn't do internet. And brought it to my attention. What a perfect vehicle to use for a crime of the century, just a thought. May 20th, 2012, just found out from Kennedy that Karen's van was light blue. Just like the description, I think this could be important. Plus, there was a suggestion that Gygax put it somewhere else and brought it to Valmont Auto right about the time of the murder. Kennedy mentioned 2 other possible accomplices, Rick Greathouse and Rich Hill. I am looking for info. Found a Ricky Greathouse who is a child sex offender, but need to clarify whether or not he's the same one. Still trying to find out who drove the van back to Missouri in 1997. Yeah, I mean, this is all really weird. Anybody else find this weird? So One Solved Mystery on their YouTube channel actually found a crime scene photo where it looks like there could be a van. It's hard to tell the color. It could be blue, could be green. In the crime scene photos. Is this the van being discussed? So if it's in the crime scene photo, I mean, it's there the night after. So are people speculating it broke down so they left it there? That's way too obvious. Could the cops be that incompetent they would have never checked this van? The other thing I can't get over is that Gygax or Kennedy have this blue van. They have the exact van spotted. And I guess that's not that rare of a van, but it's still kind of weird. Still kind of weird. One Solved Mystery also reported here that the detectives drove around the neighborhood filming video of all the cars parked on the street. So again, this is after the fact. So unless they left the vehicle there if it broke down. I mean, how crazy would this be? If the case was solved because the perpetrator's vehicle broke down and they had to leave it right near the home on the same street. I mean, this is very close to the house. Supposedly the Fernie van was parked in the back of that, so it wasn't parked in the spot of where the crime scene photo is, unless, I mean, could they have moved the vehicle? And One Solved Mystery also, in their video, suspicious blue Astro type van captured at the crime scene, goes over the different body types of Chevy Astro versus Dodge Caravan. I mean, from a distance, I mean, yeah, I guess you could mistake. So what does everybody make of all of these suspicious vehicles in the area? I mean, it's kind of a lot. I mean, we have potentially 3 black Jags at three different times. Possibly twice at the Ramsey home, and once supposedly verified by police reports, going around back and forth 5 times minimum. That's kind of a lot of times, though, even if you're lost. I mean, 5 times back and forth? I don't know. And then, of course, the blue van situation, coincidentally, this personal friend of Arndt making this ID at least 2 mornings in a row, and possibly even the morning of. For 3, and possibly 2 other, between the Fernies and then Fleet supposedly also having a blue van. Is it verified that Fleet drove the van over to the Ramsey home, though? Or did he drive something else, in which case he can be ruled out? It's very difficult to find details on any of this. And is it all by design? Is this all by design? I don't know. Plenty more to come. Believe it or not, there's even more we haven't gone over. But some mind-shocking revelations here about the neighborhood as well, and how it's really not as posh as reported. Supposedly a lot of slummy homes in the area, possibly a lot of drug activity going on Christmas night. So who knows what really went down? We'll be continuing to investigate in typical Mindshock fashion with logic and reason at the forefront. Hope everybody found another edition of the Mindshock podcast interesting and informative. If you want to help support the podcast, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. You could also become a YouTube member right here on YouTube. Access to exclusive streams and chats. Make sure you subscribe, like, and share. Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Patreon. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind, leave them in the comment section. This is Bruce McGuire signing off.